What's up? I'm Wesley, and I am a field sales representative for Monster Energy. On the side, I am trying to educate people on how to be elite vendors. I've created my own platform that will help onboard people that are brand new to the industry. Also created a sales system that people can follow for those that have maybe been in the beverage industry for a little bit longer, but are struggling to hit their numbers or actually make sense of how to sell to that difficult decision maker. And then I've recently got into the space of actually growing out of being in a sales role and moving into some type of leadership role or a role that aligns more with your archetype with the Brand Builders program. So a lot of things going on there. Currently still in field sales. I don't think that I would ever want to get too far from actually selling in the field because it became an obsession and a really big passion of mine. And I'm kind of here just to show people how easy and fun selling drinks is. And I think that we need to get back to probably making selling drinks fun because I think as the industry has grown, it's gotten very serious. And whenever I started 20 years ago, it was a whole lot of fun. There was a little bit of a reverence in it. It was a true sales position where you could get out there and be yourself, have a lot of fun, not worry too much about what people thought about you. But now I think it's starting to get a little too serious. So I want to get back to those days where we had a whole lot of fun selling beverage, not take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation because I'm also a big advocate of this. I mean, a lot of times I talk on here, about the podcast and the brands, but people forget that the day job, so to speak, of FreeMind is actually market development and strategy. So I still go out. I'm 22 years in, and I pulled cold doors intentionally. I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy just like this via Google Meet. I also do it in my day-to-day, pulling doors into new accounts to introduce new brands. I'm a full advocate of everything that you're saying because one thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, salesmen are going to be dead in the future of AI. I actually don't even think this a response as an egotistical thing. I think people that make those statements don't realize how hand selling and how much the beverage industry is. Now, I know that from other industries where you can do telesell, you can sell remotely, and at a certain scale in the alcohol industry and the beverage industry as a whole, you can sell telesell. But for startup brands, medium-sized brands, brands that are still getting their story out there, Wes, exactly what you just said it is face-to-face. And I even tell the story that a couple months ago, I was selling to a retailer who, when the toilet, people don't realize, these retailers are owner operators sometimes. I work in the independent channel as well. And, there was a time where a couple months ago where he's plunging the toilet while I'm doing the pitch and I'm handing him paper towels and wipes. And I think that people undervalue that in the world of this tech boom that we have here is what that interaction is, that personal touch. And talk a little bit about some of your strategies, and you don't have to give away the secret sauce, but also showing people like how it's done differently. Because I think a lot of people think that salesmen just sit around now in front of a screen and talk to people on Google Meet and talk about what it's like to actually put your feet on the street and get out there.
Sure. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, people think that the job of a vendor or a sales rep is going to go away with the boom of AI. And yeah, there are elements where we are going to be selling over the phone. I've had over 40 jobs in my lifetime. I've been around everywhere. It just happened that once I landed on working in sales that I discovered, hey, I have a knack for this and I'm a good speaker. I've always loved speaking in media, which is why my channel is the way that it is now. It's just kind of parlayed my love of speaking and selling into now also doing media. But I don't think that it's going to go away because you have those genuine interactions like you were talking about, where you will see that person in a weird moment, but you're willing to offer a helping hand. AI can't do that. You can't really do that over the phone. I've closed plenty of deals where I was like, I can't believe I closed that over the phone. But I worked as a bill collector for about 3 years too. So I'm pretty savvy whenever it comes to conveying a message over the phone without seeing that person face to face. But not everybody has that skill, and it's not always going to be that easy. That's like kind of a advanced technique or a one-off. You really definitely want to be in the store, speaking to that retailer, understanding who they are. And You said don't give away the secret sauce, and that's something that I've kind of been preaching since I've moved over into Monster. Is there really is no secret sauce. Monster didn't invent a sales strategy. This is something that I've seen throughout the course of working with many different brands. Is there is a very structured system, and if you just turn it into a system, you kind of remove the emotions of it. I think where technology has really helped us is having these insights that we can show people. So that kind of removes the emotion or the relationship part of the selling. I mean, you still have to be a personable person. One thing that I do say is your relationship is going to get you a seat at the table, is they have to like you to even want to begin a conversation with you. But those insights is really what's going to elevate your next steps. So that big display or that cooler in front, or gaining an extra shelf in the cold vault door, the insights that you present them from a person that they trust and they like, and from a consultant aspect, is really what's going to help you win. But I would say that is just get better at speaking to the insights, and lean less on, does this person like me or not? I mean, I'm sure you've heard it, and the longer you're in this industry, if you haven't been in here you haven't been doing it for a while, I have a number of store managers or decision makers that tell me, oh, I don't drink that stuff. And one thing that I love to say to them is, hey, you don't have to drink it to make a whole lot of money off of it. Your customers are telling you that they want it. Your consumer wants it. They're telling us what the next move is to make. And so whenever we purchase this data, or if you work with a company that purchases data, you have that. And if you don't, you talked about emerging brands. If you don't, just make sure that you're taking good inventory, because that sells through data, as long as you're taking good inventory, you can get a good estimate of what your run rate is. Now I do break down how to do that part of it as well in my program, but it really is just that easy. Have a process that makes sense to you or your entire team of how you document your inventory, how you document your sell through, and then that way you have a compelling story at store level to show that person.
How, like, I haven't been able to talk to anybody else that's on the street this much, but are you in the independent and the chain, or are you in both, all channels as far as right now?
Right now, I'm a field sales rep, which means I primarily focus on large format.
Mhm.
I work in San Antonio, which is very, I wouldn't say they're independent heavy, but they are co-op heavy, which means that we have a lot of, they might as well be independents. They do work within parameters of their co-ops, but essentially they can do whatever they want. And you can't pay for that data. You have to make sure that you have good, that you're taking good inventory, and that you're documenting every sales call in that regard efficiently. So yeah, I work in large format now, and even I work with a regional here, HEV,
Mhm.
and they don't let you pay for data either. So, I have to make sure that I'm looking back at the sales history, making sure that my depletions are accurate before I go pitch anything too crazy. I think a lot of people think that selling in a display is going in and selling in this larger than life or big theatrical display all the time. That may not be the case, because you may not have the SKU that warrants that on programming. So what I always do is sell the size of the SKU, or sell the size of that brand. So if I have, and I have it happen to me, even though Monster is a larger brand and we sell a whole lot, there are certain SKUs that don't necessarily warrant that big thematic display. And what I will never do is sell somebody something that I have to go back and pick up later, or that I can't forecast with like a good feeling. So if I oversell somebody and then we're just sitting on that product, it makes me, number one, look like I don't know what I'm doing, and I haven't been a good consultant to them. But on the other hand, there's a lot of SKUs, if you just patiently sit back, take the ones that you can get that make sense for the size of the depletions that you're doing, and then for those bigger packages that we know are going to sell, then I go crazy on those, because I have no worry that those are going to sell. But you have to be confident, and you can only do that by making sure that you're taking good inventory. But yeah, I don't work with too many independents now, but I have worked with them a lot in the past. I spent some time in Tulsa, Oklahoma too, where it was like, if you weren't a Quick Trip or a Circle K, then you were independent, and that was really cool. It taught me a lot about working with regional chains, how to see depletions like through our, um, I guess through our system, through our inventory management system. And that's what really got me heavy on teaching my guys, hey, make sure you're taking good inventory, because I do use these numbers when I go back and try to sell in programming or help these guys see, where our wins and losses are.
It's interesting you brought up about the data, because it's we're currently conducting one across Pennsylvania for independents, the category wide, just because I'm interested in what the demand is for. We're lobbying for HB 2309 in Pennsylvania for hemp beverages to be sold in alcohol establishments. And so we're trying to survey statewide in all the different categories of channel of sale to find out the demand of how many are aware of the bill, from a lobbying aspect, but also then how many would purchase a license when the license has become available if the bill passes. And what I found in this process is the light bulb kind of came off over me. They're like, yeah, we have Nielsen, we have IRI, we have all these chain activated data sets that we can look at, but really there's nobody collecting independent operator data. And that I'm aware of, you know what I mean, to the detail of also that I'm aware of, because sometimes you see independent, but they're only counting like, still chains and stuff like that. But I'm talking Jack's Tavern and, Jim's Package Store and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now that's one channel that I hardly ever work at, is in the on-premise. I do go out, but my on-premise for the brand that I'm working with now is a little bit different than yours. So for me, on-premise is like Academy, Home Depot, Health and Hospital, Collegiate. Yeah, it depends, I guess, on the system that you're using. And then, yeah, that's just some good old fashioned get out there and ask the questions and take some surveys and try to make sure that you're talking to the right people whenever you collect that intent to purchase, or and whenever you're out there educating. How do you go about lobbying for something like that to the actual people that it matters most? I mean, it's one thing to sit in front of the courthouse and talk to people, but Jack at Jack's Tavern isn't going to be at the courthouse wanting to see what the latest hemp beverage lobbyists have to say. Do you have to, I mean, I would imagine that you plan pretty strategically and you go to the right places. So
it's exactly where we the same way we would sell a product is not in a sales aspect though. So the mentality when I have these conversations is it's strictly education. I have zero, because I believe in the bill from a principle standpoint, and we wrote this from the best of intention for actually opening up the entire market. I know that if I show, I call it showing, not selling. And basically, when I bring in products, or if I bring in services, or if I bring in advocacy like we're doing with this, it's just tell them. And I have zero care if they come on board or not. But the fact is, when I showed them everything, that's all I can do. Because the boundary of that becomes, if I cross that boundary, then I'm selling. And I don't want to sell somebody a bill. I want to show them the bill. And then if they buy into it, then they're going to be the biggest advocates also. And that's usually what happens is once they're educated on it and they understand it, then they're standing right next to me, literally offering any time to go do anything as far as interacting with lawmakers or speaking with the media. And also from a strategic standpoint, to go back as well to what you're saying, is me being in the state that I'm in, that I've been in for the past 22 years, I do know how the hierarchy of the communities go. So obviously the ones with the most connections and the most reach is where I'm going to go first and let them kind of, I'm a big organic guy. Like I want to go talk to that guy and he'll be like, all right, I got 6 other people I want you to meet. He does warm intros over here. Those people are connectors. They got 6, each of them have 6 more. And then that's how it's going. And at the same time, what I do is I run the technology side of things, where I have a organic newsletter that goes out on a bi-weekly basis. And then I'm hammering those out as one-on-one emails, not as a general mass newsletter. So those one-on-one emails are running out simultaneously as I'm going out there. And then surveys are being called with a team that's doing not telesell, but they're just doing a strict 5-question survey, asking what kind of products they have inside, trying to assess the category. And then if they have any knowledge, and we want to know for this one, do they work there as a staff member, or are they a manager and a buyer? And are they aware of the bill as well? because it's important for me if I start seeing that all the managers know what's going on, but the staff don't, then I get to make a phone call, and it's not confrontational. It's just call the owner up and be like, hey, the staff that are actually working the register aren't aware of the bill. Therefore, they can't communicate that then to let this organically trickle down to the consumer. Because at the end of the day, you also want the public at large to be aware that this bill exists. And if they want to get on board with it organically, great. If not, then unfortunately that's it is what it is. But in the lobbying world and all that stuff, it's not a sell. Now, I'm not a lobbyist by any means. We work with a lobbyist. I just use the term lobbying as in our supporting the bill. With that said as well, that's not the case for people that might be in that industry. You know what I mean? Like they might be selling. I'm just one that is a citizen advocate that is donating my time and services to the bill to get it moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I have a buddy I didn't know that you were in the hemp business industry. A buddy of mine has created and cultivates his own hemp beverage in Dripping Springs. It's called Tejas Tonic. And
is that Aaron? And
yeah, that's my
I don't know him personally. No, I just know the name. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my good friend Aaron. I've known him since we were like 8 years old, and I actually consulted with him a little bit on bringing the brand to Austin and parts of San Antonio, and helped out a little bit. But it has been tough watching the legislation on this come around. It seems like there's been a lot of back and forth. So
yeah, especially in Texas, you guys. One of my clients is down there in Texas. Is just like every other hour, it's the light switch coming on and off as far as what they're going to do. It's like it's very. It must be. I can't imagine to be a brand in there, based there right now, trying to navigate what that means. You know what I mean? And trying to be, follow compliance, follow regulation while it's all zigzagging. I mean, I deal with it in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and then the federal off and on. But Texas seems like it's a whole nother beast as far as the wrong wind seems to change their opinion on how they're going to do it.
Yeah, you're in a decent space right now, but I don't know what the future holds. I did recently walk into a Circle K out here, and it seems like they're on board. They have like incremental coolers with, hemp beverages in them now. And I was like, all right, this is interesting. We'll see where this goes. But there is probably some light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm not 100% sure. We never are about when it could change or what could happen. So,
yeah, in the past few months, I think I had a lot of mixed feelings about politics and stuff like that. I'm an unaffiliated voter intentionally. I don't go either way on stuff. And in the last end of it, I've realized that like watching the wishy-washiness of all of this, at the end of the day, it comes down to education. And sitting in these congressmen and senators' offices doing these conversations, I realized that how much stuff goes through and laws become reality when they don't really have a whole lot of education about what it is they're passing. So going back to what we were talking about earlier and exactly what you're talking about with educating field sales reps and helping people go through, let's go back to like the past 20 years in sales and things like that. At the end of the day, everybody wants to think you can just come right in and do this, but really education is the foundation of the actual sale. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like you went through the consultative aspect of things, and I use that word intentionally, and I do the same thing. We're not sales reps. We're consultants, or we're consultative sales reps. Because at the end of the day, if we're not educating people on the category as a whole, or that trend, or the data points, there's no sale that's actually going to happen because they're not going to be passionate about the product that's on the shelf. Thus, your rate of sale is going to be zero, and you're going to have 800 points of distribution with a pat on the back. But then 6 months later, you're scrambling to figure out where to go.
Yeah, you're picking up out of dates. While you're asking that question, I was thinking I had a conversation with my son. He's 16 years old, and he just got his first job in fast food, and he's thinking about the future and where he's going to go. And he's like, so whenever I get out of high school, I do a couple of years of college, and then I can already see the gears turning. And he wants to go into beverage. He wants to sell. He thinks what I do is cool. And he's like, so is that how it works? Like, if I get my associates, do you think that will put me in a good role within a beverage company? And I said, well, I mean, yes and no. It definitely helps. There's a lot of what I'm noticing also just in this business is there's just a ton of nepotism. So also it's like who you know and where they're at in the company and how they can help you. It's not always that way. But then I showed him, I said, I'm probably one of the only people at my company that really was just hired on. I don't have a connection to anybody at this company at all. And while I am recognized as being one of the better sales reps here, it came with a lot of additional work, which I think people necessarily wouldn't want to do, or they're just kind of happy with where they're at. This whole idea for BEV edu really started whenever I was working in beer as well. I worked for Reyes out of Austin, and so I guess I can go back to the very beginning. For me, everything started a long, long time ago in Sherman, Texas, where I started as an order selector for Coca-Cola. I moved my way into being a forklift operator in San Antonio. So I picked up my family from Sherman, moved to San Antonio as a forklift operator. Then I got an opportunity to work as bulk logistics for Coca-Cola overnights. And all the while I'm thinking, I want to get into sales. I wasn't really sure why I wanted to, but I liked the planning part of it. I really was an advocate for the brand. In South Texas, we're raised on Coca-Cola. So it's kind of it's a religion out here. And I was bought in. I was like, I know I can do this. I have the ability to do it. And it just got to a point where the writing on the wall is like, we're not going to give you a job in sales. They were going to keep me in the warehouse. So it was pretty clear. A friend of mine was working for a third party out in West Texas for Red Bull. And he said, man, with what you know on logistics and your ability to speak, just try to get a job in San Antonio with Red Bull. So I did. It worked. And I spent the next 9 years there. I worked as a sales trainee all the way up through I actually got my own route, became a district sales manager whenever I moved to Tulsa about 4 years later. Spent, 3 years there. Moved back to San Antonio as a DM, kind of fell out of love with the culture and went to go work for a roofing startup. And that job was not as advertised. I did learn that selling business to business and selling business to consumer are very different. I'm more, like I said, I'm not a relationship seller. I am more of an insights person, and insights just don't really hit the feels to a homeowner like they do a business owner. So I spent, I think, a little less than a year there, but did pretty good for never being in that business before. But all that to say, while I was doing that, we had a few consultants come in. So we had these gurus that created sales systems for roofers, and they had marketing gurus that came in and showed you how you market yourself. So all this stuff is moving in the back of my mind as I left their company, and then I got back in. My buddy worked for Sazerac. He's like, "Hey, Reyes is going through some changes. Like, just hop on over here." And I'm like, "Dude, I got to get back to something that I'm familiar with, like my wheelhouse." So walk on star quarterback for Reyes. They had a territory that was like right where I lived. I just killed it, but it seems the bigger a company gets, the more they take away the fun parts of their job. Like I was saying earlier, we need to get back to having a little bit of fun. I mean, I was selling beer, like that should be a fun job, not something where you get like micromanaged, overlorded, you know. But that's neither here nor there. All the while I'm thinking, I could do this a lot better than the company that I'm working for, the leadership that I saw. And I had that voice of my dad in the back of my mind. It's like, well, if you can do it better, son, why don't you go do it? So I was like, all right. So I spent the next year while I was working in beer creating this whole program, right? True onboarding for people that don't get onboarded, true sales system for people that don't know how to sell. And then recently, just in this role, we were talking about the nepotism. Well, how do you get to the next level? So you have to market and brand yourself as a brand. So as I was creating these two systems, then I was like, all right, well, what would be the natural next step for somebody that has become like an elite vendor? And I said, well, it would try to be a coach or a leader or in some type of different role within the industry, hopefully, ideally with the same company. So then I created, you know, I took everything that I was doing whenever I was with the beer company. I started getting more active on LinkedIn. I really was intentional about when and why I posted. I really I dove in on the beverage industry, all things beverage, what was happening with certain brands and certain companies, and started posting all that. And it really just got me better at that. Started up leveling the way I posted. So then it started turning into these time lapses where I started time lapsing my displays. Then it started turning into like longer format day in the life content. And all the while, um, people were kind of saying like, well, aren't you giving away secrets? Or are we really allowed to do this? Are you allowed to like post what you do like that on the internet? By then I had, left, I had got my job, I got my role with Monster, and I was doing all this stuff for them. And I just saw like kind of a scared mindset or a scarcity mindset in people whenever I was telling them, hey, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to coach people how to sell. I want to coach people how to develop their career. I want to show them how to build their own personal brand. And they're like, can we really do that? Are we giving away stuff? I'm like, I don't know if it's insider trading. I don't know if I'm giving. I'm not giving away trade secrets. All my stuff is. I've gone through the process of actually copywriting all my stuff, so I know that I'm okay. But it was kind of strange to me that nobody had this thought before, because nobody's really built like a. I've seen one other person recently since I've started doing this that's actually taken the time to want to consult smaller distribution and sales teams within the beverage space. So I don't know if if there's just not a call for it, or if it's just so niche that I don't know. But then there's like there's a lot of like secretism, or I guess there's a scarcity mindset in some leaders where they're like, I just want to keep this because I don't want somebody to take what I have. I was never like that. I was a district manager for several years. I was always trying to show everybody everything. I was like, and then even had people like, well, aren't you worried they're going to take your job? I'm like, I kind of want them to take my job because I'm tired of this one already. But I'm never a complacent guy. Like, I remember one time whenever I got promoted from, a trainee to having my own route, I was there for a few months, and then my boss came up and, told me you're killing it and stuff. I said, that's cool, but like I'm already ready for the next thing. So, however long I have to be here, but I'll never be the complacent employee. Like, whatever you give me, I'm going to try to elevate to the next level. And that's what I want. I need to find people like that still have that passion. I know that some of these companies and the culture has a way of beating you down. You have to find that culture within yourself and build it up and really show what you're about. And there's a system and process to doing that too. So you go through these steps, you build yourself out, and then you try to also align yourself with like a culture within a company in the industry that really aligns with who you are. And I think that's whenever you find happiness within your work. So while I'm really enjoying my time at Monster, it's just a vehicle for my personal brand. I mean, my personal brand is this. I just happen to work for Monster, which is a kick-ass brand that allows me to do all these super fun things and gives me content for days, to be honest with you. But if I ever left Monster, if Monster decided they didn't want me, I'm fairly confident I could go to another brand and I could do the same thing there, or it would just give me more time to, concentrate on BEV edu and try to find you know, some other brands, distributors that need my help or want it.
I can tell you that you and I had a very similar path. So at 19, I started at a working in breakage and in the warehouse at a beer wholesaler in Philadelphia. And then I was eventually working night shift doing order picking, which I can commiserate with. 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. when trucks are shifted and you're an order picker and there's no orders to check. That's the worst time in the middle of the night. And then I went on to merchandising, and then I went into a sales route, and then I ended up running a craft division at another beer wholesaler in Pennsylvania. So I started this business in 2008, and I want to actually connect with you even deeper to say, keep doing what you're doing, because that's what I've been doing the last 18 years. I've been going out and working on site with sales reps, training sales reps, opening up new markets, and then basically which is something that might be a niche. I'll give you the secret sauce right now, and anybody listening, if you're somebody that's comfortable cold calling over the phone as well as walking in and pulling a cold door, there is a huge opportunity in the beverage world for you, because every sales rep under the sun is good. It wants to maintain accounts that are already open. There are tons of brands looking for people that are going to go open up a brand new account for them in a brand new market for them. So that's something, as well as education. So Wes, I'm going to tell you, keep doing what you're doing and don't give up on this, because eventually that side gig is going to become a full gig. I'm going to call it right now on the air and in public. And I don't mean that as a dig on Monster. I think it's phenomenal that they have the open mind and understanding that it also benefits them to have you creating that content, where most businesses, like you said, there are a lot of businesses, exactly, they're closed-minded and they don't want to share that type of stuff. And if you go back, like, the reason I'm saying all this stuff confidently is I've documented my entire career. You go on the YouTube channel that this episode's going to be on and you scroll all the way to the bottom, you're probably going to go to the beginning of YouTube, and you're going to see, because it's the same channel I've had my entire career. And you go in and you'll see it's me with a flip camera, one of those, remember those white cameras back in 2010 to 2012. When this business started, I was booking bands. And it was exactly the same thing, where everybody books a band at a bar, and in the early 2010s, 2015, but nothing was ever streamed out. So I was like, well, if I'm a band booker and I'm making money off of the door, I'd love to get more people in here. So what am I going to do? I'm on YouTube in the back with a flip camera recording the show. And then I was clipping shows and putting shows up on there to try to draw business up for the bands that I was representing. And then all of a sudden, different alcohol brands wanted to partner on shows and things like that. So but also at the same time, I'm a solopreneur. So I've been doing this for a very long time, but I don't say this like the regular creators where it's like, here's your Lamborghini. I've done this because I wanted a balance in my life and I wanted to keep things at a certain contained level. And so I respect what you're doing. And I want to tell you that it's a grind. There's nothing easy about it. Everyone's going to tell you you're crazy and you're full of shit. And everybody's going to do that part too, the gatekeeping part. But I've also been a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk and all that. So if you follow Gary V at all, everyone thinks he says the greatest thing that is the truest thing is that share everything, because 90% of the people aren't going to do it.
Right.
And then when you get the 10% that are interested, you know that those 10% are going to be your audience and your community. And that's, if you're sufficiently happy there, then that's perfect. Because anything past that 10% is just bots and people that aren't ever going to buy from you. They're just vanity metrics. And that's the thing, is when you get to a place where, I built a program called the Beer Ace back from 2010 to 2017, before any targeted, we did no paid ads. I literally went to beer festivals with a QR code on a business card and took selfies with almost every attendee at every beer festival. And then I would tell them that their photo, go tag themselves in their photos. And then that was how I built a 20,000 audience in the early 2010s, which today would be, a couple million if it was the same way that the algorithm works today.
Right.
But I say all that because I'm a grinder. I grind everything. I'm resilient. I'm persistent, but I'm not annoying. So I'm one of those things where if I get an idea in my head like you, it's like, I'm going to do this. And if you're running alongside me, then we're going to all benefit from it. And to go back to the monster conversation, that's all an ecosystem. And so it's a benefit to them as well as a benefit to you to be able to create that content. And a majority of businesses don't see that. They'll say things to their employees like, oh, you're spending too much time on social media. And they're not realizing what that quality of what that comes out of that, but also the authenticity of you being vulnerable and exposing that's going on. It's not exposing in some clickbait way. It's exposing so that other people can understand the reality. Because let's be honest, like you said, everybody thinks selling beer is fun. People don't realize that there's a lot of fun in it, but there's also a lot of Excel files. There's a lot of dirty basements. There's a lot of, there's a lot of moldy, out of code product you're buying back. And I think that the more we expose the transparency or be transparent into that, the more people can come into things with the reality of what it is. And I think that's the biggest thing with anything in trust. In, like you said earlier, about trusting data and trusting insights, is like we'll be real with everybody. And it's like, this is the day on the job. Today, I'm going to spend 6 hours on windshield time, and I'm going to have 2 hours worth of meetings. And then that's going to be a time lapse video because nobody wants to follow you for 6 hours in the car while you talk to yourself.
I try to strategically plan my day in the lives based off of my best reps. So recently I posted some red, white, and blue displays that we did for 4th of July that happened on the last day. Well, it happened like early in June, but I edited it all up and then I posted it for the July 4th, like the Friday before July 4th. So very strategic in how I do that, and then I can reuse that content as shorts later on. I've started to realize that as well. There's so much niche, like weird things that you learn as you go. I'm also running. I created my own media company, says ChatGPT. Like I type in all this stuff, and it got overwhelming for a little while too, because it was like always on. Like I'm trying to also schedule podcasts. I am I always say you got to feed the demon, which is the content demon, because it wants you to be on there all the time. But luckily I have a website that allows me to schedule some things. And I think people look at it like, this guy is on the internet all the time. You kind of do have to be everywhere all the time. And that's where I do kind of love and hate Gary Vee also, because
oh yeah, I don't agree with him on where you're going. Yeah, I don't agree with his metrics on that at all. Yeah, he's got a 50-person team,
Sure. Yeah, I don't have that. So I also spent a lot of time thinking like, how do I do it as a one-man army? And I just recently started to figure that out. I spent the last 3 years building like crazy, and now I have all of this content and this information, and then I've gotten really good at chopping up shorts now too. I've gotten my own style, and this is something that I share on my YouTube channel as well. If you want to know how I chop up my shorts, I have a very small. I have a like an 18-minute video where I literally do a walkthrough of how I do it. And this was like the early days where I wasn't paying for anything, so I showed you all the little workarounds that I use on CapCut, and I did it all from my phone, just sitting right here at this desk. But man, you just learn so many different things whenever you are trying to start marketing yourself, or whenever you go out. This is kind of uncharted waters. I mean, now the more people I talk to, I see this in them. Like, you're now the person. I didn't realize you've been doing it for this long as far as trying to be a consultant in this industry. It's one thing to be a consultant for a company and to a retailer, but it's also another thing entirely to try to find customers that need you and are willing to admit that they need your help.
Yes, that's the biggest rejection in everything. A lot of people talk about business to business sales as far as retail goes, but it is a very arduous process sometimes to get to getting those clients. And sometimes it's really, Wes, it's sometimes out of the control of the intent. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like trying to make the financial piece work.
Yeah.
Where both people want to work together, but you got to make it work, and you got to pay your bills because you're a solopreneur, and you have to, like, that's the hard part is when your services sometimes are skewed a little differently than a large agency. So trying to compete with that comes down to the wire too.
I feel like people would pay. I don't know if companies like small to mid-sized distributors, would they have the budget for a large company. And so I think that is where I kind of offer some value, because I am just one guy, and I do have some tiers as well. So if you are a small to mid-sized distributor, I'm very approachable in what it costs. I mean, I have individual rates on my site, but if you were a company and you wanted to get team rates, I feel like I'm fairly approachable, and there's different ways. And I actually do have that also in a system where it is tiered, like you ramp up to a certain point where you would be able to pay for me to actually be there in person. We do live in a day and age where you can get a lot done online. So you can do that, and then we can have virtual calls like we're having right now, where we can go through all of these systems as well. It doesn't have to be a boring call that lasts for a really long time. Me as a rep, I'm like, yeah, that's what we need, another sales call. But yeah, there's ways to work with the customer, and that's definitely what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to find that one person that's like, yeah, we're doing good, but we need to scale. And to scale, you have to have a system. And to have a system, it's one thing to create a system, but can you coach and teach somebody a system? And so that's kind of where I'm at. It's like if you don't have the time or bandwidth as a company to do that, but you need onboarding. You need to coach your guys to sell better. And then there's like a tiny little spot where you have that 5% or 1% of employees where you're like, this guy needs to go to the next level. But I also don't have the time to coach, to give him the career development coaching that he needs, because we get caught up in the day to day. As managers, you're going to get caught up in the day to day. You can't, and that's something that I talk about in brand builders. Is like, how many times has it happened where you went to your boss, they know that you're the next right candidate, and you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next step. What do I need to do? And then they sit down with you one day and they break it all out and say, this is our career development program for this company. If you do this, this, and this, then you'll be recognized and ready for the next step. And you're like, okay, cool. How long does this last? It might be like a 2 to 3 month program. And then that leader, your coach that you just asked for that, will be like, all right, we're going to go through it together. You sit down with them, you do a check-in next 2 weeks, and you've done a couple of things, and then that person, then you go to check in with them in another couple of weeks, and the meeting is a little bit shorter. You guys are kind of more caught up in the day-to-day, and then that's probably the only time you probably see them a couple of times when you talk about your career development. So that's what I'm saying. You have to be more intentional with that part of it. If you really want to grow, you have to invest in yourself and put that time in yourself. Even the person within that company that wants to see you grow and develop and will put your name out there, but they can't market you the same way you do. It's just like selling a brand. You know, if you go in and you talk to that clerk behind the counter, and you're selling them on this display and why you should do it and what the promo is and how much you're going to do, and they say, okay, that's cool. Well, so and so comes in tomorrow, and you're like, well, I don't have till tomorrow. So you do your best in selling it to that clerk that's going to later talk to the decision maker, but you know they're not going to sell it as well as you do. You want that in-person connection. Hopefully you get that right person at the right time where you have an opportunity to sell that display. Well, that's just what it is with yourself too. You have to create a brand that you feel passionate about. You have to chart your course and know where you're going so that you can get that message in front of the right people and get where you want to go. So that's I don't even know what we were talking about there, but that's my thought on trying to think of yourself as a brand and build yourself up and get to that next level. It's one thing to be able to understand the ins and outs of the industry, be able to sell really well, but then where do you want to go after that? You can't last 20 years in this industry as a route sales rep. It's just not going to work. You have to know where you're going after that. And I don't think a lot of people think that. I talk to people that have like, I've been a merchandiser for this brand for 20 years. I think I know what I'm doing. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing, because you wouldn't be a merchandiser still after being here for 18 years and doing the same thing poorly over and over. If you knew what you were doing, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because I come in and I tell you that you're merched it wrong every single time.
Oh, I know a couple of those. Have you ever thought, so as you were talking, and as much as you got at the end there, you didn't know where you were going, but I'm going to tell you from the receiving end, it was completely cohesive and everything made sense. And it actually led me to this closing question for you and a compliment. Your cadence, have you ever thought about creating those online courses to scale what you're trying to do, where it wasn't a manual process or anything like that? Your cadence is like spot on, yeah. Which obviously I can tell you're seasoned sales rep, yeah.
My well, my very first job was in broadcasting. From a very early age, I knew that I wanted to be in radio. Radio died, unfortunately, but we have this cool thing called YouTube. We have podcasts now. So whereas like the traditional format of broadcasting is kind of going the way of the buffalo, now everybody has this platform where they can do it. That's why I do agree with Gary Vee. Everybody does have a platform. If you want to do this, you have a way to do it. Yes, I have created. I mean, all these courses are created. I started in 2023 creating. I got everything copywritten as far as the foundational knowledge and sales system in 2024. Everything is up at bevedu.co. You can, as an individual, you can purchase one, or you can purchase the whole bundle as far as the foundational knowledge, the sales system, and brand builders. And yeah, man, I can't even begin to tell you what it took to actually put everything together. A lot of long nights, a lot of development in my equipment. You can tell from my very first video. So if you purchase, if you go in and you take the course of the foundational knowledge and the sales system, and then you switch over, you almost get the bins whenever you start going into the brand builders part, because my abilities in editing and recording and developing scripts and the way I went about the brand builders part was way different than the first two. The first two were very traditional corporate training videos on how to do stuff, which at some point, whenever I get the freedom, I might go back and, if I get the freedom and the team, then I might go back and redo the videos to make them a little bit more exciting. But the idea is that all the information is there. So yeah, this comes with 20 years of experience in this industry and a passion for coaching and developing talent, and putting some excitement back into that person. I think a lot of people will spend time overcomplicating it in a way that kind of pushes the front line away. We don't need to be doing that. We need to make sure that we simplify everything for the front line, show them how easy and fun this is. And then once they get the basics down, then we start lifting them up. I was like, oh, you're good at that? You've done really good at that. Check this technique out. And that's where I get into the idea of advanced techniques. Get the basics down, get really good at that. Once that gets boring, I'll show you a little more. And that's what we should be doing. And having a lot of fun along the way. And it doesn't always have to be a big grand gesture. We're having UFC is coming up soon, and I just took it upon myself. There's a local bar here in my small town, rural town of San Antonio. And I just sent a message out to all my Monster team in Austin, Waco. Come on down. We're going to watch some UFC. This guy is a small business. He gave us the run of the place. Doesn't cost us anything. We're Monster. So of course he's like super excited, like to have us there. Opportunity to convert an account that's not a Coke account into a Coke account. It's that kind of stuff, thinking outside the box that gets you recognized. And it doesn't cost you anything. So you just start seeing there's different ways to grow a brand, grow the culture. And yeah, I don't know. It's a weird passion that I've become like low key obsessed. I don't know if it's a dysfunction that I have, but it seems like whenever I get into something and it starts clicking, I like low key become obsessed with it. Whether it's creating a course, whether it's coaching, whether it's selling drinks, just whatever, I've become kind of engulfed in all of it.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I'm really glad we finally got to talk and stuff like that. I'm looking forward to some more conversations with you and picking your brain on a few things, as well as anything I can do to help you as well, man. It's it was this is much more in as far as how much our lives aligned over the past 20 years. It's pretty wild. So I just got to admit that also, that's the joy of doing this show without any prep, is that I get to learn a lot of these things, and it's exciting. You know, I got to meet somebody else who is in this, and to you, kudos for the work you put in. While you were talking, I did hop on your website and looked at the courses and stuff like that. Beautiful website, very user friendly as far as that goes, and just like kudos on the work you've done, because this isn't your full focus. You know what I mean? You do have a job you're doing during the day while you're doing this, and the quality of what you're putting out is phenomenal. So keep doing what you're doing, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, man. It's like I said, it's that obsession that I have, and it's user friendly intentionally. It wasn't always like that. I just revamped that website because I didn't want any questions. I wanted it to be almost like Apple-esque, where you're just like, you immediately go and you're like, I want this, and you can get it, and you don't have to menu dive. You don't have to go through a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Quarterly, I'll be doing like some webinars that lower the price. I don't know when my next one is. And then I'm also going to have a new offer, which is like a one-pager on how to build your brand that be even more approachable. But as it stands now, I feel like I'm giving each course for basically the price of an ebook. So I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to take that time to invest in themselves and get better. If you've asked for coaching and you're not getting the coaching that you need, and you know that you have more to give, like, bro, just spend the $60 and go take a course, get better at selling, get better at managing your route, planning, you know, and then take the time to build yourself up and move away from that person that's not going to give you what you deserve. That's it. I mean, it's that simple. You can go very far in this industry. It will take a little bit of work. If you don't want to put in the work, then that's fine. Just be happy with, in the role that there's a place for people like that too. But if you want more, bro, you have the guy that's going to tell you everything right now. I will show you everything that I did over the past 20 years, and hopefully you'll get there in like 5 years. That's the goal of this, is like, I want you to get there faster than me. It took me a long time to figure it out, but everything is in there step by step. You don't even have to feel emotional about it or anything. Just go do it.
Absolutely perfect. Well, hey, Wes, we're going to wind down here, and I want to thank you for coming on today, and thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it, because I want to remind everybody in the audience watching and listening, there is no script. There is no agenda. Wes and I have never met. We've never had a drink together at a bar. We've never shared coffee together. And it's the power of the human connection. And I want everybody to understand that it is this easy to make friends. You have more in common with people than you expect every single day. And Wes, for you to have the cojones to come on without any questions, there are plenty of people that say, yeah, can we have a meeting prior? Can we have some questions to get ready for? And it's like, no, there's no script intentionally, because I want this to be authentic. I want this to be organic. And that's exactly what we were able to do today. So thank you, man, for having the courage to come on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Nate.
Absolutely. Well, I want to remind everybody as well, everybody watching and listening, when you are out in the street, walking on the sidewalk, put your phone in your pocket. Look at the stranger as you're walking down the street. When you're at the gas station filling up your cup of coffee, look at the person next to you. Ask them how they're doing, how their day was, and actually listen to them. All right. The challenge to everybody is 5 minutes of kindness to a stranger every week, 20 minutes a month. We talk about ROIs. We talk about drinks in here, and it's all fun and games. But at the same time, it's important that no matter how good your life is, show kindness to a stranger. 5 minutes a week, 20 minutes a month. Awesome ROI that we can put out into the world. So thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. And Wes, thank you for coming on today, man. It was awesome to meet you.
Same, man. Thank you.
Awesome. You take care, Wes. Have a good rest of your day, buddy. Good luck on the route today.
Thanks.
Take care.